different. There's multiple types of muskets that we use throughout the American Revolutionary War. There were short land pattern round S's. There were long land patterns like this, which was just about as tall as I am. I've been hearing that all day. And muskets can range from about maybe like 8 or 9 pounds to about 15 pounds. This one is about 15 pounds. So you can imagine carrying this all day would be very, very tiring. The person who's going to be heading this demonstration is a captain, and he is a lot more knowledgeable in the dressing of ranks. I am simply private, so I follow instructions. However, if you guys have any questions before we start, I might be able to answer those, or I can explain a little bit about my regiment and what I do with this particular musket and how I tend to operate this, explain the basic parts of it, and kind of give you guys like a 101 before we get into more of the details. Yes?
So you have a rifle brigade with your regiment?
So we have some riflemen. Most of us are riflemen in the 1st Pennsylvania because we're light infantry unit. However, some of us do operate with muskets. It's not nearly as common though. So this gun is not mine. It is being gifted to me for the moment by somebody else who is currently here with the regiment. My musket is a short land pattern round musket. It would not fit on the wagon, unfortunately, so I was not able to bring it with me. However, most of the time I would be operating with a rifle, which would be part of a rifleman's company. So when you hear about Morgan's riflemen, they're using rifles. That actually would bring me to a good point about the difference between rifles and muskets. So when you're looking at them from far away, you wouldn't really notice much of a difference. However, the difference for those of you that operate modern weapons, you might know, is on what's going on inside of the barrel. So a musket's just a smooth barrel. It doesn't have anything on the inside. It's just a single tube of steel. While as a rifle will have what we call rifling, which is where the term rifle comes from, which is like a spiral pattern that's been cut into the barrel on the inside in order to give the ball a bit of a spin as it comes out. Now, some of you might wonder, well, it seems like rifles would have a bigger advantage because they've got extra fancy stuff to them. The reason that the Continental Army wasn't all using rifles and we only had certain units that were, is because it takes about twice as long to load, twice to 3 times as long to load a rifle as it does to load a musket. Because whenever you fire, it leaves a lot of residue in the barrel, and that ends up making it very difficult to drive the ball in. So, the basic parts, this one is a musket. The basic parts of the gun, essentially, would be the stock, have your flint here, which strikes the hammer area, and then it goes into what's called the flash pan, which is where we would put powder. This metal part is the barrel, and it's attached to the wood by way of either pins straight into the metal or through rings that are then pinned on, which is what you'll see in a lot more American-made models. And Captain is here. However, this is a British model, and it's a little bit more difficult to clean, so I will yield.
Good day, everyone. Imagine she went over the steps of reloading the musket.
I have not yet, actually. I just got into barely talking about the differences between a musket and a rifle, so we just started.
So you all know the difference between a rifle and a musket? That one, but you don't? The rifle, yes. Yes, and with that, you can actually fire a rifle 3 to 4 times faster than you can with a musket. A lot of people wonder, why don't we just use rifles instead of muskets? Well, that rifling actually takes work to do. For every one rifle, you can make scores of muskets. A musket is smooth all the way down, resembling a shotgun. And a rifle, the way that they were designed at the time, were designed more sleek-like, which a musket was a little bit more heft to the stock, so that when the battle got up close and personal, you could use it as a club without risk of breaking the stock as much. Also, another thing that the musket had over was the bayonet. Is that now I have this much range between a man and a knife who has only this much range, where his reach is out here about that side where I've been able to turn my own musket into a spear. And it also is hefty when I come across cavalry. Cavalry is mounted troops, while infantry is ground troops. And ground troops, there are various different types of ground troops. There's various types of cavalry, and there's various types of artillery, which is the cannon. Is that with a rifle, you actually have those grooves, and in order to take advantage of the accuracy, you actually have to have a ball that actually fits into that, and you have to force the ball into that rifling all the way down, so that it actually can take advantage of that rifling. If not, if it's too small, then you can load it faster, but you're sacrificing accuracy. When it comes to a musket, for every shot that you could take with a rifle, you could take 3 to 4 shots with a musket. And with all this is that going through what the process of loading a musket is that you would typically be at order arms, but if you were on the move, you would be at shoulder firelock, and it'd be in a sequence of steps. Is that if you could?
Would you like me to
I'll demonstrate it. Prime, handle, prime and load. Reach into your cartridge box, pull out a cartridge, by cartridge, pour gunpowder a little bit in the pan, enough for it to spark, shut pan, charge firelock, and with it comes the wadding and the bullet at the very end. Use your rammer to ram it all the way down home. Return ramrod because I need to reload again. You go up to shoulder firelock, and if nothing else, and if you were in the middle of a battle, you go to poise firelock. Make ready, take aim, and a bit of sparks would ignite the pan, going in through a touch port with the powder that you just dropped down the barrel, shooting the projectile out. And the problem that a lot of people had was a thing from the black powder called fouling, is that it leaves a bad residue. So after your first shot, the harder it was to reload because of all the soot that was down the barrel. And so with that, you also are sacrificing accuracy and you are sacrificing speed. So they made another compromise, some armies, to have a smaller caliber balls that actually could fit through the fouling and to be able to load. It's sacrificing accuracy but also keeping up the speed. And most of the warfare back then, as is any warfare, is psychological. Is that it is, you've all heard the cannon, and it's by reports it's actually going to be firing off here pretty soon. Here you have soldiers out there in line formation that are about to fire. Imagine hundreds or thousands of more firing off, and you on your own or with the squad mates running to try and fight a wall of men who are firing at you or have fixed bayonets and are standing their ground, having every bit of confidence and their training showing through in every motion, and make sure that you don't. We'll watch them. They're about to fire now. continue, does anybody have any questions? What was that? This is a French Charleville. It is a 69 caliber. This right here, that Private Jones is utilizing, if you would set the cock down, is that is a 75 caliber. Now that is the one that the British used. By reports, the reason why the French had a smaller caliber is because they had access to better powder. Is that gunpowder is made of a ratio of sulfur, saltpeter, and charcoal. And sulfur is the thing that actually causes it to flash reliably and without less delay. And the one that had access to sulfur in Europe actually did not favor the British as much, by reports that I've been told. So with that, we will demonstrate the process of loading. Private Jones will actually go by my commands. Shoulder, firelock. Forward, march. Company, halt! Company, to the right, face.
I have something down my line, Captain.
Shoot oblique. And elevate. Handle cartridge. Move your musket. Private to the priming. Half cock firelock. Bike cartridge. Charge pan. Shut pan. Charge musket. Now in this process,
We would take out the ramrod, but
in this process we would take out the ramrod and ram the ball home. We are not shooting projectiles, of course, because this would be very short if we did. So, in demonstrating that as I did, to pull out this ram it home, make sure it's properly seated, return the ramrod. And you want to make sure that you don't fire your ramrod, or else your commander might ask you to go fetch it back. Make ready! To the oblique, elevate. Make ready! Take aim! Fire! Recover. Shoulder firelock. To the right face. Form up in line. That is step process. The drill, they had various drills to accommodate for any sort of threat that was there. There's many different directions. I want to know, do you want to know more about the infantry, the cavalry, or the artillery? Or perhaps even the Navy? But we don't talk about that. Artillery?